now that Krimeji mentioned about the election result, so you'll have to see my ugly face for the next 5 years, but with a good heart, I'll come. So I hope to look forward to working with you much more stronger. Thank you.
May I now invite Honorable Sikyong Kumpemba Sinlacho to deliver the keynote address.
A very warm welcome to all our friends. I think most of us we have met. These are very tumultuous times. That is why some of our friends from Eastern Europe could not attend this conference. Otherwise, as Krimeji mentioned, you are representing about 32 different countries. We have Australia-Tibet Council, Janet Price, Senator Price, who have been coming as a member, as a senator here in Dharamsala, worked very hard for Tibet in the Senate of Australia. Now she retired from the Senate, but she's still very committed to the cause and continue to work with Australia-Tibet Council. You have the International Campaign for Tibet led by Tenzin Gyatso, who I had the privilege of having worked in the parliament together. She was my senior, and now as executive president of International Campaign for Tibet, and you heard Richard La. I'm sure many of you may be a little upset that he is not physically present here. Maybe some of you already met him several times. But unfortunately, the flight that he had booked on, there was some trouble with the timing to connect his flight to the next destination. So he had to take the early morning flight this morning, and he couldn't be with us. I received this message from Tenzin La last night, and the best possible thing was to have a message from him that was shown to you. But he is very much with us in his heart. In fact, he was saying that he didn't know that all these events were lined up, because all these came up in the last few months. Otherwise, he would have stayed for another few days, because you have the 10th March, you have the Indian TSG Long Life Prayer Offering to His Holiness, and then the Indian Tibet Support Group Conference following this. So he very much wanted to be here, but all his schedules have been worked out, so he could not be here. Otherwise, we work very closely together on the Hill. Even when he was sick during the pandemic, we were working together. And then you also have Ryan Ferosi, who is the new executive director of International Campaign for Tibet, who used to work in the State Department. Last time I asked him, how do you feel sitting on this side of the table now when he used to be sitting on the other side of the table? It's kind of strange, but I'll get used to it. So, so we have a very good ICT team here, also accompanied by Kai Müller from Germany. And we have Brian, who we know for a very long time. I think he started coming into Dharamsala way back in 1996, if it's right. And he was the one to come to Dharamsala back again with NED programs over the years. And now you have Pematula. He has become the vice president. He's a big guy now in NED. And you have Pematulu Sang, who has taken over the Tibet projects. You have Lama Rinchen, Vijay Kranti. If I have to name everybody, it's a whole lot of names. So you have, you know, my personal involvement with the TSG movement started way back in 2003 when I was the executive director of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center. And Rebon Banerjee used to be my boss. So she's also here, Gundar Colonia. So all of our friends from all over the world, from Latin America, we have from Colombia, from Costa Rica, from Chile. And then I was personally in Brazil, so we have our friends from Brazil, friends from Colombia, one lady and her husband. It's only two of them in Colombia. And they arranged everything during our visit with the help, of course, in working in close connection with the Office of Tibet. And then Lama Rinchen also helped us in Brazil a lot with our other friends. And we have Carla from Mexico. She was one who was chaperoning us around, and we had some very good events in Mexico, even though there are not too many. And Tony Karam is always the anchor, a Tibet anchor in Mexico. So from as far as Latin America, all our friends in Europe, North America, and Australia, Taiwan, Japan, so everybody, very, very warm welcome. As I mentioned before, it's very tumultuous times as war is raging in Middle East. I think the case for nonviolence and peace becomes much more needed at these times. So we have to take that global responsibility, and also we, as supporters of Tibet, we have come a very long way. Some of us have been there from the inception. In fact, I was not there from the inception, but still I know the stories, how it was conceived, and the first Tibet support group here in Dharamsala. And then you also have SFT and ITN, Mandy sitting at the back there. So all these, we have journeyed together over the last more than 60 years, and more particularly from the first Tibet Support Group conference onwards in the late 80s, then till now. So some of us have been associated for a very long time. Some of us joined in the middle of the journey. Some of us have just joined. So most of us, we have met each other during our visit to your respective countries, and your support has been very, very valuable for us. Even in Portugal, we have only one lady as friend of Tibet, and she was helping us organize all the meetings in the Portugal Parliament. So even in Finland, where Andre also in Sweden, so we have very few Tibet supporters in many countries where we don't have Tibetans, but still with your help, with your dedication, we were able to reach out to the media, we were able to reach out to the parliamentarians, foreign officers, some we could not. But we have to work towards that end. So whatever respect and whatever dignity we receive today, it's all because of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because of His Holiness' efforts over the years. So I keep saying that the results that we bear today are the fruits that we are plucking, what His Holiness has sown. So His Holiness is the one who has been the driving force all through, even today. So we are going through a very critical time in our history, because last year we celebrated His Holiness' 90th birthday, and this event is also part of the 90th birthday celebration. It's because of His Holiness that we are here today together, because we decided that through the events that we have been organizing since July 6th, we should be having different guests at different events. And for the 10th March, the Department of Information and International Relations and the 90th Birthday Organizing Committee suggested that we should have all the Tibet supporters, irrespective of whether they have a particular Tibet support name or not, should be represented here and be part of the celebration to meet with His Holiness. And also 10th March is politically important for us to commemorate the 67th 10th March. So then DIR, Department of Information and International Relations also suggested, since we are all here for the 10th March, since many of you are coming, then why don't we organize a special International Tibet Support Conference? So this is how this conference came about. And then our Indian supporters, led by Krimeji, and I think Professor Anand Kumarji is joining us tomorrow. He will be reaching tonight. We have many of our core group members from all parts of India and others. So they will also be meeting separately after that. So this will be a good opportunity to brainstorm. I think very good opportunity for all of you coming from 32 different countries to meet with each other, network, and see how we can improvise. In any organization, any movement, there will be ups and downs. So we should not be demotivated because some things are not happening right. It will happen. Things will happen as long as we try to understand each other and settle down and to work towards the right cause, not for your personal gain. We are all here not for your personal gain. You are sacrificing a lot, each one of you. If you have to talk about Richard Gere also, he sacrificed a lot. It's not easy for him. And for all of you, Professor Samdang Rinpoche used to say that you all have decided to support out of your own volition. Nobody forced you to support Tibet. It's coming from within you. So if we are all there for Tibet, then we should forget about the smaller differences amongst ourselves. So we have a larger cause. We have things to do much more than small things that are happening amongst ourselves. So I have always been saying, if we pool our energies together, the Tibetans and the Tibet supporters, then we can achieve anything. Because our fight is based on truth and justice. We continue to follow the middle way policy as proposed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, supported by the larger number of Tibetans, and unanimously approved by the Tibetan Parliament in Exile way back in 1997. And His Holiness reiterated that he'll continue to follow the middle way policy because we don't find anything wrong with the middle way policy. What is wrong is why China is not responding to a pragmatic approach of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So that is why we decided to change our strategy a little bit while following the same middle way, thinking about how to gain leverage for middle way, how to gain value for middle way. That is why we started this narrative telling the world when His Holiness talks about the middle way, then there are ends to it. Without ends, there cannot be middle. So the middle is His Holiness asking for genuine autonomy or meaningful autonomy, which is not there in international law because it's coming from His Holiness' heart. That's really what he wants because China already calls Tibet, as you know, Tibet Autonomous Region, prefectures, counties, and all that. So our focus is now to gain recognition on the ends, one being the historical status of Tibet as an independent state, and the other, the current situation of occupied Tibet under the repressive Chinese government. So if we gain recognition from the international community on these two issues, then there will naturally be value for middle way. Because sovereignty is a huge issue for China. His Holiness has addressed the issue of sovereignty. We are not asking governments to lie. We are asking governments to accept the truth and tell the truth that Tibet was historically an independent nation. And it's today an occupied country. What becomes of tomorrow will depend on a lot of things. We are committed to middle way. So one reason is to send a clear message to the Chinese government that Tibet has never been part of China, irrespective of whatever distortion they bring in their narratives on the history of Tibet. So I always carry these two books with me, Professor Lau's book, which was inaugurated, launched in Washington, D.C. on January 29th. That was about 2 months or 1.5 months ago. And Professor Lau's story is when he was a student, they used to be taught in Chinese schools that Tibet has been part of China since immemorial or ancient times. When he was in his universities, he found that the Chinese government was asking every government to say that Tibet is part of People's Republic of China. So that intrigued him. Because if Tibet had been part of China since ancient times, then why is the communist government asking every other government to say Tibet is part of PRC? And he became a professor all his life. He retired, and since 2008-09, he started looking at Chinese history to fill his inquisitiveness. And then he came out with this book, thick book, in 2019 in Chinese, and this was translated by Sangye Kyab in Tibetan, and now the English version is, I would urge you, if you find the time, it's about 2,800 pages, so if you get hold of it, the hard version, the author also says, if you're able to read it, otherwise use it to develop your bicep. It's quite thick and quite heavy, but it's very valuable, because all his evidence in this book are based on irrefutable evidence, because these documents should have been printed before 1949, which means before the founding of the Communist Party, or if it's a reprint, it should have been printed by the Communist Party of China. So it's all government documents. And I asked Professor Lau, now do you think that since you use all that material, will they take it off-site? He said, no, it is part of Chinese history. They cannot take it out. So these are very powerful arguments coming from a Chinese professor. And he says that if I, as an ordinary Chinese, looked into history and found that Tibet was never part of China, then I'm sure any Chinese researchers in China would have found the same, but they won't tell the truth. And also I take with us Professor Michael Van Walt. We already discussed about this many times, Tibet Brief 2020. And there are many other books of people have the time to read, but these are two main books, apart from Tibetan historical books that we are carrying. So we have to carry this through. This is going to be one of our mission, to work with like-minded countries to get a similar resolution like Tibet Resolve Act in the United States, for which we worked very hard for about little more than 2 years. And it was a joint effort of everybody in the United States. It's not just the CDA leadership or the ICT or the Office of Tibet. There's a lobby day, there's Tibetan communities, the Friends of Tibet in the United States. Everybody pulled in together, SFT, So that is why we were able to produce this result. Now we have to work in other countries, starting from England. In Europe, United Kingdom is the one country that has historical relationship with Tibet. Changed its policy in 2008. Now we have to set that wrong right. So we'll be working on this. We'll be working on anybody, all the people coming from UK. We should be working on this together to set the historical wrong into right. In the UK, then we can work more with other European countries on similar lines. So, and on His Holiness reincarnation, we have been reaching out. Of course, United States have this law. We worked with the Tibetan community because that's the first community that gets impacted by His Holiness reincarnation. And then the community wrote to His Holiness, because one thing that has been very consistent with His Holiness is since 1968, His Holiness said whether there should be a next Dalai Lama or not will be decided by the Tibetan people. That still stands. And the whole Tibetan community wrote to His Holiness to continue the Ganden Phonak institution and to have reincarnation. So that's why His Holiness came out with the statement on July 2nd. And we worked with the larger Buddhist community, the Tibetan Buddhist community. Then we worked with the larger Buddhist community, not just us, also from Ganden Phonak. That's why last September, for the first time, we had representations from 12 South and Southeast Asian nations, from South Korea to Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Brunei, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Burma, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. The 1,000 Buddhists led by their religious leaders or the representatives came to Dharamsala, offered His Holiness a long life prayer, and conferred on His Holiness the title of Supreme Patriarch of the Buddhist world. So this happened for the first time. And coming from the Pali tradition, coming from themselves, I think it means a lot. Not all of them, but majority of them. So we have been also reaching out. The United States already has a law on His Holiness reincarnation that also talks about sanctioning Chinese officials who would be responsible for choosing the next Dalai Lama under the orders of the Chinese government. So we have to also look at how China is also changing its narrative in the case of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and see how we need to counter those. So Last June, I was in London and Germany, Berlin, and both the foreign officers assured us that they will issue statements on His Holiness Reincarnation, which they eventually did on July 6, alongside France, Holland, Iceland, Estonia, and Lithuania. And last November, we also got the opportunity to speak at the Article 18 Alliance of Freedom of Religious Belief, hosted by Ambassador Rehak in the Czech Republic. He's the Religious Freedom Ambassador of the Czech Republic. And the President of Czech Republic, Peter Pavel, was kind enough to host that at the Presidential Palace. It started with a Tibetan theme, with opera music and Tibetan dance, and then invocation by Kundalini Rinpoche, and a message by His Holiness, and a short video of His Holiness with President Howell. So we also got an opportunity to speak along with Telo Rinpoche, and we urged that conference, because that conference was representative of about 38 different countries and 5 associates and 3 observers. So that was a lot of number of countries. And the conference also issued statement on the freedom of religious belief for the Tibetan people and on His Holiness Reincarnation. So we have been working toward those. These are some of the areas that we really need to focus on in the next few years. And as I mentioned before, the respect the CDA, present CDA leadership receives from the international community is mainly because of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So when His Holiness is alive, we need to institutionalize all our relations with governments and organizations and set a precedent for future. So in future, another 20, 30 years down the line, when His Holiness is no longer with us, we should be able to fill that interregnum from the time of the demise of this Dalai Lama to the maturity of the next Dalai Lama. That is what we should be preparing for, and that is what we should be doing now to make sure that these things happen. So this is one of the areas, and another area that we need to work on is on different scenarios for China. What could happen internally with external forces, and what are the possible opportunities and challenges for Tibet? And how do we prepare ourselves from now to be able to meet those challenges? So these are some of the things that we are thinking of doing, seek cooperation from. At the Geneva Forum also, I met quite a number of think tanks. We are increasing our footprint with the think tank in Washington, D.C., along with ICT and Office of Tibet. So we are doing our best. So wherever we are not able to reach, you please help. And we are also looking forward to more cooperation. If there are openings, if the new appropriation in the United States government, if we get the full funding, then it opens the space a little more. Earlier we could use it only for South Asia. Now it talks about reaching out to capitals around the world, advocacy, those kind of things. But we have to see whether these rules or the appropriation bills are still constrained by the USAID guideline. So we are happy to tell you that in the 2026 appropriation of for Tibet in the United States, despite all that things happening internationally, they have put in this new wording for the appropriation bill, that for this bill, the Central Tibetan Administration would be considered the Tibetan government in exile. So this is one step, one small step. Of course, Richard Gere knows about this, and I mentioned this to Richard Gere. This is one small step, again, for us after the Resolve Tibet Act. Richard was saying, no, this is not a small step, this is a big step. So we will be working on a bill on the legitimacy of Central Tibetan administration, starting with the United States. So these are some of the initiatives that we are working on, which could be replicated maybe at a lower scale. So at whatever level, wherever we have governmental support, we have to work for governmental policy and positions. And wherever we don't have governmental support, we'll have to work with members of parliament who represent a large size of their constituency. So these are just some outlines that I laid for all of us to think about now. One of the sessions is also on how do we think about changing or amending our narrative under the evolving, dynamism of global order. So these are some of the things, because we cannot keep saying the same thing over and over again, even when the international orders are changing, when things are changing around the world. So we have to look for better ways and interesting ways to advocate our case around the world, depending on the situation in your own respective countries. So thank you very much for everything you have done for us. We remain very, very, indebted to each and every one of you. We'll keep meeting now that Krimeji mentioned about the election result. So you'll have to see my ugly face for the next 5 years. But with a good heart, I'll come. So I hope to look forward to working with you much more stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sijong Kumpembatsinlaj, for the encouraging and very encouraging and insightful speech. As Sijong La rightly said, we are going through a very difficult time, but the truth is on our side.